Every board has approved a repair that came back, sometimes twice, sometimes at 3 times the original cost. That's not bad luck. That's what happens when a building system gets treated as an isolated problem instead of something larger. Imagine 4 specialists examining the same patient: a cardiologist, a neurologist, a pulmonologist, and an orthopedic surgeon. Each one runs their tests. Each one finds something. Each one treats what they find. Each treatment is correct by every standard in their specialty. Yet the patient keeps coming back. Nobody's comparing notes. Nobody's asking how the conditions interact. Nobody is responsible for the full picture, only their piece of it. That's not a medical failure. That's a coordination failure. And as in medicine, it happens in building maintenance with remarkable regularity. A property manager calls a roofing contractor for a leak. The roof gets patched. 3 months later, the leak is back, because the drainage system directing water toward that section of the roof was never part of the conversation. A mechanical contractor replaces a failing HVAC fan. 3 days later, the AC's down again because an interconnected emergency exhaust fan 3 feet away was also failing, and nobody looked left, right, up, or down while they were in the ceiling. Each contractor solved what they were called to solve, correctly, professionally, and completely within the scope of what they were asked to do. The scope was the problem. When nobody is responsible for understanding how building systems interact, every repair is a guess about whether the visible failure is the actual failure. Sometimes it is. Oftentimes, it isn't. Most boards encounter this cycle at least once. A repair appears manageable. The scope feels contained. The board authorizes the least disruptive fix, addressing what's visible and getting the building back to normal. Weeks or months later, the problem is back. The diagnosis shifts. The repair expands. The cost increases. The board approves it. The problem recurs. By the 3rd visit, the cost has multiplied. Owners are asking questions the board can't answer directly. The property manager is fielding complaints about why something that was supposedly fixed keeps breaking. And everyone's left wondering whether they've been working with the wrong contractors all along. They probably haven't. The contractor fixed what they were called to fix. The problem returned because the underlying condition driving it was never identified. And the underlying condition was never identified because no one was responsible for examining the full system, only the broken part. That's the loop. Here's the decision rule to end the loop. When the same problem recurs, the same leak, the same failed component, the same system offline for the 2nd time in weeks or months, stop. Don't authorize the next repair. Before the next contractor touches anything, someone needs to look at every related system in the vicinity, not just the broken part. Everything connected to it, everything dependent on it, or everything likely to fail alongside it. That might mean calling an engineer or an architect before calling the repair contractor. It will feel like overkill. It will feel like the board is being a hypochondriac about a building problem that just needs to be fixed. But it's rarely overkill, because the second failure is information. It's the building telling you that the first diagnosis was incomplete, that the visible failure wasn't the actual failure. After this happened to us, we hired an independent architect to investigate a recurring HVAC failure. What the architect found wasn't an HVAC problem. It was a drainage problem created by a roof replacement 3 years earlier. Water had been pooling near the condenser ever since. The corrosion was slow, invisible, and completely predictable if anyone had been responsible for connecting those two systems when the roof was replaced. Nobody was. That's not a contractor failure. That's a scope failure. And scope is a governance responsibility. Think about how a work order actually gets created. A resident notices something wrong and calls the management office. The person logging the conversation writes about what they've been told. They may have never seen the actual location being discussed. A work order goes to the maintenance team, who diagnose what's directly in front of them and call the appropriate trade. The vendor arrives and fixes the component they were called to address. At no point in that chain did anyone step back and ask, what else is here? What else is connected to this equipment? That's not negligence. That's specialization doing exactly what specialization does. Narrowing focus to increase efficiency within a defined scope. The problem is that nobody in that chain owns the full system. A property manager's capacity is limited. They cannot reasonably be chief cook and bottle washer without becoming a bottleneck. The environment is too reactive. More often than not, they have little time to even walk the building and hope to catch problems before they fail. Not because they don't care, because the demands on their time wouldn't exist at this scale if the underlying systems were working. Fix the governance structure, and you create the bandwidth for more effective oversight. There's a shorthand in building maintenance for what happens when that standard is absent. It's called four-finger caulking. Instead of a clean, professional bead of caulk around a window or door, you see wide, uneven masses of it, applied with 4 fingers in layers over years of inadequate repairs, each one covering the last without addressing what was underneath. It's ugly, but it works until it doesn't. And when it fails, the repair bill reflects not just the current leak, but every previous fix that never actually solved anything. That's what one-off thinking looks like when it compounds. Small maintenance decisions rarely stay small when planning systems are weak. The work order chain that narrows context at every handoff. The property manager spread too thin to walk the building deliberately. The board, authorizing another fix without knowing what else connects to it, depends on it, or fails alongside of it. Each one manageable on its own. Together, they turn small problems into compounding ones. The repair that comes back isn't bad luck. It's the predictable result of treating a building as a collection of separate problems instead of an integrated system. Structure doesn't eliminate expensive work. It eliminates the conditions that make expensive work surprising, reactive, and never-ending. In the next video, we'll look at what it actually looks like when a board has the infrastructure in place, 5 systems working together, and what changes when they do. If this way of thinking about board matters resonates, subscribe And if you know a board member dealing with something like this, point them to me or me to them. Sometimes the most useful thing you can do is hand someone the right resource at the right moment.